Suppose I don't have any liabilities, how soon I can, buy a Mustang when I come tomorrow to Canada, and if I don't have any liabilities.
Well, let's say you're moving to this country, you don't know anyone. Okay, this is more exciting.
Yeah.
So you're moving here, you don't know anyone. First, you will try to figure out the apartment situation. I think that's gonna take you like 2 months to 3 months, and then I think after that, moment like 3 or 4 months, I think you can get a car. Like from the outside, it seems like Google and these companies ask really, really hard questions, and that's what I also thought. So my initial thing was like go on lead code and then solve the medium and the hard questions. Like one really interesting thing from lead code is the discussion, but also like how you solve the question started becoming more and more important as I started reading all those discuss sections. Okay, let's say I'm an interviewer and I'm asking this question, what would be one thing that might make me like stand out from all the other people? And I thought as a new grad, I was asked a question that I solved using segment tree, to be honest. Not because it's up to the interviewer to ask questions and like they choose what they want to ask.
Yeah.
And so I would say practice as much as you can.
Mhm.
Because like let's say if we talk about segment tree, it's kind of a implementation of tree. So it's not like you're not going out of the box. Whereas dynamic programming kind of weird. Like if you know a solution, then you can solve it in like 5 minutes. So usually the guideline is don't ask dynamic programming questions.
Okay.
I've heard that people still keep asking dynamic programming questions, and the hiring committee sometimes doesn't value that round as much as the other one. Because if someone asks a dynamic programming question, like either you know or you don't, and if you don't, I don't think 30 minutes is enough for you to understand like the whole thing.
So, what is your opinion? Should DSA be the only criteria to filter out students?
I would say Google does ask the LLD or like high level design questions, but they are more for senior roles.
Yeah.
So Google considers like L3 like new grad or one after like L4. They ask just DSA questions, and it's not just about ask the DSA question and you just getting it right. It's about how you solved it.
How do Google evaluate? So
They ask us to evaluate on like 5 or 6 metrics, and you would see each interviewer like at the end will evaluate on the basis of that, but the way they do it could differ. But for a normal person like who has never left the house and like suddenly you are in Canada with a new culture, so much snow, and like it's not as easy. But fortunately, I have been able to adapt to it, and I also met like really nice friends, and they like helped me a lot.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we have a special guest with us. So today we have Robin Jungle with us. Robin works in Google Canada and has around 3 years of experience and is a fucking millionaire. Am I right, Robin?
I don't know. I would say not yet.
Oh,
Let's say not.
okay. I think soon you will be. We can just start off with our first question. Where were you born and brought up? What was your college and what was your first job?
Yeah, so I was born in Barnala, Punjab, and then I spent like 5, 6 years in India, and then after I moved to Italy because my dad moved there earlier. So I stayed there for like 5, 6 years more, and then eventually I moved back here, and then started into the whole like rat race kind of thing. So by this moment I was like around 11. Then I came back, and then earlier I realized that there is only two ways to succeed in life, apparently, according to Indian parents. And it's like either you become an engineer or a doctor. And one thing that was kind of, I was lucky that in Italy, I also studied mathematics, and that thing stayed like the same, like the algorithms you learn or the way you think. It's kind of similar, but all the languages changed.
Mm.
But because of maths kept same, so that's why my interest started developing more in mathematics, because even though I changed countries, like I was not familiar with Hindi or Punjabi or even English. Only mathematics was the one thing that was kept common. So because of that, kept my interest in mathematics, and eventually I moved to Kota to prepare for the JEE exams, and then went to Thapar because of that. And then afterwards, I started interning at Amex, and then I got an offer from Google.
So my next question would be, after how much time did you switch to Google after Amex? And also, what I'm curious about is, you join a company like Amex, you are already earning something like 20 to 25 lakhs. So often, like people are very satisfied with what they are earning. How did you get the motivation to switch to a company like Google? Was it you want to always join Google? Or maybe you want to go to Canada.
Yeah, so when I joined Amex, so there was like a pre-placement like internship, I think like end of third year. I don't actually remember. But when I got the offer, something always seemed like, oh, I think I can do better in terms of not just the company, but the people I will work with or the problems that I will solve. Like from the outside, Amex is like a credit card company, right? So all the problems you will solve will be around that. But Google does a lot different things, and all the other companies, whether it's like Apple or Facebook.
Yeah.
So my goal was always to try to apply to these companies,
Yeah.
and then like backtracking into what was needed. So the interview for Amex is completely different than like all the other companies. So that kept my interest going on. Oh, I need to learn like DSA and graphs and trees and like all those things to eventually target those companies. And so rather than being like company focused, then I started being more of skill focused. Like what are the things I need? And if I have those skills, then I will have just more options. So that's how I started preparing.
So, how many questions did you solve to crack Google, and what was the difficulty of them?
Yeah. So like from the outside, it seems like Google and these companies ask really, really hard questions. And that's what I also thought. So my initial thing was like go on lead code and then solve the medium and the hard questions. Like one really interesting thing from lead code is the discuss section. So because then people share about their experiences and those things. So like looking at those, I was like, okay, I definitely need to be able to solve lead code medium and hard questions, and in a certain like amount of time, is like 30 minutes around. And but also like how you solve the question started becoming more and more important as I started reading all those discuss sections. So it's not just, oh, you are able to solve this question. It's like how you solve it, like how you structure your like code, and like are you using proper functions like naming and like all those things.
So, you know what? I remember our discussion from years back when I asked you, you told me that, you everything you coded, you made classes for it, and the interviewers were very impressed with it. So, am I remembering it correctly?
Yeah, that happened. So it's funny, like yeah. So I was looking at lead code discuss, and they were like some people mentioned like how you structure the code is really important, but no one actually mentioned what to do. So just from my mind, I was like, okay, let's say I'm an interviewer and I'm asking this question. What would be one thing that might make me like stand out from all the other people? And I thought, as a new grad, I don't think most people do this. Like they structure their solution with like class using classes or structures or like all those like good naming conventions, and you name the function well, and it's like atomic enough that you can make like you're ready for the follow-ups.
Yeah.
So he asked me like some question like around tries,
Yeah.
something related to like Google search and like how you implement it. So I needed to use tries. So rather than just having one function which took the input, created like a try in between, and then solved it,
Yeah.
I kind of split it into into had a class called tries, and then inside I had like different classes like nodes and like functions to get the value and like or to put a value and like all those things. And he was really, really impressed by this.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, like he was not expecting me to do this. But then when I was doing it, he was like, oh, this looks really, really good. And getting the feedback at the end of the interview, like that usually doesn't happen. But if someone says that, then it means like I did something like really good.
Yeah, because I don't think this is something you expect from a fresher. They just come into the coding round, they just try to solve the question as soon as possible, and they not at all write the cleaner code. They just focus on solving it fast. So this is a follow-up I have is, there will be a lot of folks in college which might be watching this video, and they consider Google is very hard. So average person, can he like crack Google? And also, what is the average time an average person will take to crack the Google?
So I would like when you say average person, I would say it's not like if you're comparing with let's say code forces, and like you don't need to be a candidate master, like someone like really, really high up to crack it. It's like, as I keep saying, it's not about you solving the question. It's all also about the way you solve it and the way you collaborate with the interviewer during the interview, because that's how they will see, oh, this is how this person will work in the company. So when you do like all those code forces, all those things. Like you, in your mind, the goal is to solve the question really quickly
Yeah.
and just like let it pass somehow,
Yeah.
right? Like pass all the test cases. But in the interview, that kind of becomes a bad habit because then you are just focused on you doing it as quickly as possible and only you understand your code.
Yeah.
So all those things which make you a good competitive programmer
Yeah.
hurt you if you don't focus them when you are doing the interview.
Mm.
So when like for a normal person, I would say like who is not into competitive programming, I think it doesn't hurt you as much as
Mm.
long as your basics are clear and then you know like your preparation is situation based, kind of like you are given a question, you understand what's the situation, you convert that question into or the inputs into like your scenarios that you have learned it could, and then you solve it using like trees or graphs or whatever. And then if you structure the question well, I think you will be way you have a stronger chance as compared to the person who just solves it for themselves and does it really quickly. I was asked a question that I solved using segment tree, to be honest. So I
Okay.
would say it's not like because it's up to the interviewer to ask questions and like they choose what they want to ask.
Yeah.
And so I would say practice as much as you can
Mhm.
because like let's say if we talk about segment tree, it's kind of a implementation of trees, so it's not like you're not going out of the box.
Mm.
Whereas dynamic programming is kind of weird. Like if you know a solution then you can solve it in like 5 minutes.
Mm.
So usually the guideline is don't ask dynamic programming question.
Okay.
I've heard that people still keep asking dynamic
Mm.
programming questions, and the hiring committee sometimes doesn't value that round as much as the other one. Because
Okay.
with if someone asks a dynamic programming question, like either you know or you don't, and
Mm.
if you don't, I don't think 30 minutes is enough for you to
Mm.
understand like the whole thing. But whereas memoization, which is kind of dynamic programming but trees with caching in a way, that is expected.
Yeah.
As so yes, so I would say like you should practice this like segment trees or dynamic programming and those things, but dynamic programming like more like memoization.
Mm. So I'm quite surprised that, a topic like dynamic programming, which if I am preparing for Google, that would be one of the topics I would definitely prepare for because dynamic programming itself is a very hard topic and Google is a hard company to clear. So the first obvious thing comes into the mind is that, do dynamic programming. So I'm quite surprised, but at the same time, as you mentioned, right, there's very less probability of that being asked.
So I would say you should practice like trees, graphs,
Mm.
and memoization, which is still kind of dynamic programming. And like the way you solve questions is also really important. And tries. Because I
Yeah.
was asked all of those things I mentioned.
Recently, I gave interviews of Google, and while I was preparing, what I observed that RISE is one of the topics which is asked the most. And what is difficult? It's not the tries that is difficult. The main thing is, finding the idea, reading a question and finding that it can be solved with tries is one of the most difficult things. And that's what I like about Google. All the questions are, such that they're in a form of story, and you have to kind of figure it out from what topic it is and finally have a solution for it. So another question I have that there's this debate in market that, should you ask development questions or should you focus just on DSA? Because we have 3,000 questions on DSA and whoever solves more will, be better, right? And developers don't want that, you ask DSA from them. And Google is a company which takes all 5 rounds as DSA, right? And another thing that comes up is it doesn't even ask things like LLD, HLD, and rounds like that, which other companies ask. So, what is your opinion? Should DSA be the only criteria to filter out students?
So I would say Google does ask the LLD or like high level design questions, but they are more for senior roles.
Yeah,
So Google considers like L3 like new grad or
yeah,
one after like L4. They ask just DSA questions, and it's not just about asking the DSA question and you just getting it right. It's about how you solve it as well.
yeah,
So by that criteria, it's better than other companies.
yeah.
what other companies are trying to do is they just copy this model of asking lead code questions, and then their whole basis of selecting someone is if you are able to solve the question,
Yeah.
which should not be true. Like Google has one, so there are different rubrics on which you make a decision you should hire a person or not. And
Mm.
one of them is growth mindset. So
Yeah.
you could ask a question, and then let's say they have never heard about Dijkstra's algorithm, but it's needed to solve it. And then they know basically what graphs, right? So what could happen is you gave a hint that, oh, this is, you can use like a priority key or like do whatever to like traverse the graph in a way. And the person in the interview itself is able to solve the question. So this, like, they might lose points on they don't know about Dijkstra's algorithm, but their growth mindset is insane. Like learning that thing in like 30 minutes and implementing it, that's like amazing. So Google does a lot of different things
Yeah.
to ensure that it's not just about if you know that question, you solve it.
So my next question would be, how do Google evaluate? Suppose you are the interviewer, so are you given a checklist based on what you have to evaluate the students? Like he writes clean code, he also, make functions and all. So what is the criteria behind it?
So they ask us to evaluate on like 5 or 6 metrics, and you would see each interviewer like at the end will evaluate on the basis of that, but the way they do it could differ.
Okay.
So these metrics are like, if you're what's your code comprehension, like it could be then the growth mindset, which I also mentioned. And then the other thing is like your knowledge about data structures and algorithms, and then your knowledge, like how you are communicating to the interviewer, your solution, and like all those things. Like, are you asking the necessary question to understand before you start solving the question? That's like kind of designing in a
Mm.
way.
Mm.
So there are different metrics that all the interviewer will evaluate the person on, and the way they do it is a bit different.
Come to the next part. Suppose you have cracked the interviews of Google. Now you're joining Google as a fresher. So what I remember is as a fresher, you do a lot of mistakes. Okay. So do you have some suggestions for freshers that they're just joining, what they shouldn't do and what they should do and how should they proceed in their job and professional career?
So you're asking for someone who has cleared the interview and is joining.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the best thing I like to say. Like when you join like a company, you think the stakes are really, really high.
Yeah.
And you, when you're solving a problem or like coding or submitting your CLs or whatever, you think, oh, if I mess this up, like my career is done. So I would suggest you should not think that stakes are really that high.
Yeah.
You should be open to committing mistakes, and you just make good decisions, and then like start solving or anything. So that way, like it's easier to backtrack to the decision and not the act of you like doing anything, right? So I would suggest don't think that like stakes are really, really high. Like it's not the end of the world if you like mess up something. Like if you mess up something and it eventually reaches production, it's not your fault, but it's combination of the whole thing that led that code into production. So it's like many things are involved. And also this way you find new bugs.
Yeah. True.
You should not think as though you're destroying the company or whatever or your future. Like it's
Yeah,
always a growth.
like if something goes wrong into prod, maybe
Yeah.
like it's not the fault of the developer, but the system itself, right?
Yeah, the system should be able to catch it, right? So, and this is how new features are implemented. Like if you're like, oh, this bug like really released to production, like what happened? So you have the whole postmortem and those things. Yeah,
Like
yeah. So don't think the stakes are really high. That's
So, have you done a blunder which, switched off everything or something like that?
something like that. So I work in the experiments part. So let's say some developer is launching a feature, and then they want to test it on like a few percent of traffic before starting that. So these are called like experiments. So what I was involved in, I was launching a feature which would handle this experiment differently, and like it turned off a lot of experiments, like a lot of them. So in a way, like the people were stopped receiving the new feature, but because the system was set up in a way that it did not cause much damage. So that's how I know that, oh, the system is really, like we identified what other bugs were involved in, like if anything leaked to the people or not. well, at that moment, I was like, damn, I messed up completely. Like, I don't know how the people are gonna react to it. And yeah, so we have the culture called like like no blame culture. So that like really really helped.
So I tell you my experience. So I kind of did a big blunder. Okay. So I was part of this Outlook calendaring team. So basically, CEOs share their calendar with their admins, or you can say their assistants. And I pushed something which break the flow. Basically, the calendars were shared, but there is this instant sync that happens. Okay. And it stopped working. Now all of the assistants' calendar are out of sync. They have their meetings. Assistants can't manage that, and all the salespersons are, contacted me that what you've done. But at the same time, as you mentioned that, in company like Google, Microsoft, there is no blame culture. So my teammates kind of supported me a lot, and yeah, I was very afraid, but at the same time, the culture that we have in companies like Google and Microsoft is quite amazing. And even if you do blunders like that, they do protect you and at the same time, try to identify what were the issues in the system. So my next question would be, if you see culture in India, you will observe that, everybody is very competitive. Everyone is from middle class family and everybody wants to grow as fast as possible. So this creates a lot of toxicity. All the managers are very pressurizing. Okay. And yeah, it's not very great, right? You have people like Narayan Murthy and other CEOs saying that you have to work 70 to 90 hours. So do we have similar kind of thing in Canada or is it different?
It might be because I'm still working at Google, right? So Google has a different culture even in India as compared to the other companies. So I won't be able to
Yeah.
compare at how it's Canada in general. But from what I have seen, at least Google Canada versus Google India, people are more chill here somehow. It's like they see this as work. Whereas when I go back to India, because I was like for a few days I was working in Canadian time, kind of. So I was having a bit of like meetings or whatever, like a bit later. And then I was in the office and I realized, damn, people are still in the office at like 6, 7, or 8 p.m. I'm like, why are you even here? It doesn't make any sense. So that's when I realized, oh, the managers in India, even if they're from Google, like because they're hired from different companies, so they kind of bring that culture back to Google. Just because, like, let's say you have someone from Amazon, like they will have certain priorities, and it's harder to like mold yourself. Whereas if someone joined Google in or Google from the beginning, like they will have certain priorities which are more according to the Google culture. So I would definitely say that like people in Google India, like I think they don't consider as work, like they consider it more of as like a pressure, like I have to be the best. Like whereas here it's seen like, oh, it's part of it's my job, and then they work really effectively. Like they don't take many breaks during the day, and then they like leave by 5. And here in Google India, I've seen like people stay around longer.
So the next major question everybody wants to know, how much do you earn, Robin? But I won't be able to ask you the salary directly. So what I'll ask is, how much can you save in Canada? Okay. So if tomorrow I come over there, how much can I save if, I am living a basic life?
So it's kind of hard to estimate because if your goal is to send money home, then you would not, I don't know, get an expensive car or get your own apartment.
Mm.
So I can maybe answer you in like a range of
Yeah.
like what I do and what you can do. Like if you remove all the other
Yeah.
like traveling and like all those things from life. So I think realistically, like you can save like around 2000. Like also I would like to do it by month, so it's easier to bill because like by the year I have no idea. Uh, so okay, so I think a month you can save like if you're doing traveling and like getting a good car and like all those things. So I think you can save like $2,000 a month. And if you're trying to really really save, then I think you can get it to like 4,000 a month.
So the point is that you're earning nice, you have a good corporate life. Now, the Third thing that comes up is social life. So I've seen a lot of cases of depression. People in Canada get depressed easily. The reason being, winters are long over there. You don't have Indians over there. So did you get caught into that?
Like, yeah, leaving your country and then moving outside, it's like really challenging, especially if you don't know anyone. Like when I moved here, I did not know anyone
Yeah.
because I earlier lived in Italy, like as we talked about in the like
Yeah.
before. So from that experience, like I learned a lot, like how to stay, because that was just how I was used to, right?
Yeah.
And then when I moved to Canada, like all those memories were like, oh, back, like, oh yeah, this is how you live, kind
Mm.
of. So it was not as difficult, but moving to a place where you don't know anyone, that's like really, really challenging.
Mm.
And I experienced that first when I moved to Kota for my to prepare for JE. Like I did not know anyone, like
Mm.
almost. Like I had a friend, and then like he moved away like a year later. But then you start building relationships and you start meeting friends, and then you start adapting slowly and slowly. I think this is like a really important thing that I have learned over the years. And yes, that kind of helped me. But for a normal person like who has never left the house, and like suddenly you are in Canada with a new culture, like so much snow, and like it's not as easy. But fortunately I have been able to adapt to it, and I also met like really nice
Mm.
friends, and they like helped me a lot. So yeah.
I think like Google might have a lot of contribution in that, like meeting good people, having a good culture. So yeah.
Like I remember when I moved here, like, in the beginning, like you like going to grocery store, like the food is so different, right? Like you're not used to that.
Mm.
So I was like, oh, I don't know what to cook, or like people cook here. So that's all new. But as long as, because I had like a stable job, so
Mm.
in the worst case scenario, I was able to go out and buy.
Yeah.
Like when you have food, when you have shelter, all the other problems are solved easily.
Yeah.
Like because your main requirements are like satisfied, then you can go and like explore more. Yeah, so like if you're moving here without a stable job, then I think it's like really, really difficult. Like I don't know how I don't know how people do that.
One question I forgot to ask when I asked your salary and your savings. So one thing that comes up is that suppose I don't have any liabilities, how soon I can buy a Mustang when I come tomorrow to Canada, and if I don't have any liabilities.
Okay, if you are coming here and I'm like already here, then I think
Yeah.
you can buy the first month. Because then you can stay with me, like you have like a lot of problems solved already. But
Mm.
let's say you are moving to this country, you don't know anyone. Okay, this is more exciting.
Yeah.
So you're moving here, you don't know anyone. First, you will try to figure out the apartment situation. I think that's gonna take you like 2 months to 3 months, and then I think after that moment, like 3 or 4 months, I think you can get a car and you can get the Mustang. Like I got an Audi, and
Mm.
like it's not as difficult as it's from India. Like if I see myself living in India, I would never been able to buy this car. But like here, it was realistic from the moment I moved here.
Yeah, I think this section will help me work me more harder and will give me motivation to move to Canada.
Like this, I think like a lot of people are talking about how much tax you get taxed in India. Like the finance minister, I don't know what she's doing. But anyways, so the fact that in India we get taxed a lot and we don't get the benefit, and then the import tax is so high, like buying anything, even an iPhone, is so much more expensive.
Yeah.
Now, a car you get taxed like 100%. That is like just crazy. So because of that, like lower taxes on these imports, it's achievable. Like these things are not that expensive.
So next thing is that you have a good corporate life, you're earning well, you have a good social life. So is there anything that is missing that you feel if this would have been there, my life would have been perfect?
I always used to think that once you start earning like money, then like things magically solve. So one thing that is kind of missing is definitely like here, like taxes are really high. So I would rather be at a place where like I could like move to the US, like earn a bit more and like all those things. So I can enjoy my like other travel or whatever that I think I like to do. But apart from missing, I think I'm just with experience, you also realize that, oh, money is not the answer. It's just like about your general health and the things that you do, like your work-life balance and those things. So one thing I think I could improve on is like winters are really long. So I would love like if they were a bit shorter, but that's me just nitpicking, I guess.
So my next question would be, what next, right? You're already in company like Google. How do you see yourself next 10 years? It's a typical managerial question. So yeah.
Next 10 years. I don't know. It's a really tough question. I don't know what I will do in 10 years. So I've tried to have smaller goals so they're easier to comprehend for, I guess, the human mind, anyways. So what I'm trying to do right now, like earlier, like when I joined Google, I was like, okay, that was my goal. I achieved my goal, and then you feel goalless for a while.
Hmm.
And then so I joined in January 2022. And after that, like when I moved to Canada in like May, I was like, I don't know what to do next. So then the only realistic thing that I could see was like getting the first promotion.
Hmm.
So I was like, put all my energy and focus to getting the first promotion, and then I got it. Like it was within like 1.5 years.
Oh, nice.
And and then after that, I was like, okay, I don't know what to do now. Because like from this moment, like we are grown up, it's like, oh yeah, it's always a race. Like you have to do those things and then get the first promotion, then get the second one, like keep achieving things, keep going up the ladder. But in the last 1 year, I have realized, oh, it's not a race. It's about like just enjoying your daily things.
Hmm.
So I have shifted my focus on solving problems that I would be proud of later on.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's what I'm trying to do. Like trying to work on projects which I feel like I could contribute to, and just like learning in general. So it's not about, oh, I want the next promotion as quickly as possible. It's
Hmm.
about I need to learn these things. This is just really exciting. So that's what I'm like shifting my focus. So in the next 10 years, hopefully I will keep doing the same thing and solving problems that I will be proud of, and having like traveling the world with and experiencing like just the world in general, which I think past 2 year ago me would never have thought about this. It would be like, oh yeah, I just want to earn money, you know.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So I think that was it. These were the questions I had, and I think this was very useful and at the same time very inspirational. I'm quite excited to come to Canada, buy a Mustang, and also like stay in a house. Uh, yeah, I think this will be very inspiring for a lot of folks as well. So if you guys found this helpful, do subscribe the channel and press the bell icon.